Coming up on WUFT's First at 5, tracking the tropics. The preparations already underway in north central Florida ahead of any potential impacts from this tropical system.
Plus, under a state of emergency, what the declaration means for Florida counties to prepare for potential impacts.
And protests at the O-Dome, how demonstrators are pushing back against companies going against affiliate companies' stances on the Israel-Palestine conflict. First at 5 starts right now.
First at 5, from the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
Advisories are now being issued for Invest 97L, which is expected to quickly strengthen into a hurricane and could impact Florida later this week. Today, Governor Ron DeSantis declared a state of emergency for 41 counties. This is WUFT's First at 5. I'm Natasha Holt.
And I'm Alex Land. Much of north central Florida is included in the state of emergency, from Suwannee and Columbia down to Marion and Citrus counties. The system, expected to be named Helene, was forecast to reach northern Florida this week with life-threatening storm surge and winds that will cause widespread power outages. The National Hurricane Center warned that while the expected path of the system shows landfall in North Florida's Big Bend region or in the Panhandle, storm surge, wind, and rain will affect areas well away from the center of the storm, particularly to the east of its eye.
It is expected to intensify relatively quickly. And that's normal for this time of year. It's also normal for storms to develop around this area this time of year. And with having such warm waters across the Gulf, that's going to help with the intensification.
The area where the storm makes landfall could see 8 to 12 inches of rain. 2 storms have already hit the Big Bend in the region last year, Hurricane Debbie last month and Hurricane Idalia in August of last year.
Several north central Florida counties have already begun mobilizing for the storm ahead of Governor Ron DeSantis' emergency declaration, including right here in Alachua County. WUFT's Bailey Korinek is live at Gainesville City Hall. Bailey, you spoke to emergency management officials about steps neighbors should take to get prepared.
All eyes are on Tropical Cyclone 9 as it's expected to make landfall in Florida later this week. Today, Governor Ron DeSantis issued a state of emergency for 41 counties, including right here at home in Marion and Alachua.
Yeah, we always prepare for the worst case scenario because we never want to be caught flat-footed.
Alachua County Emergency Management Director Jen Grice says they're erring on the side of caution. The potential tropical cyclone, or PTC, is expected to strengthen over the next few days. If it reaches 39 miles per hour, it'll be named Helene. By Wednesday, it's expected to become a hurricane. Grice says the time to prepare is now.
I always tell people to think about what would you do if you did not have power for a week or more. I think that's really a good baseline.
Officials over in Marion County are prepping too. The sheriff's office says to clean your rain gutters, secure patio furniture, and prepare your home.
I think right now is a really great time for everyone to be looking in their yards, around their homes, to make sure that there's not anything that, any problem trees. We did just have Hurricane Debbie come through, so I think it's really important to just take stock of what is happening around our homes or apartment buildings, and also on the
Now is the time to make sure your hurricane kit is up to date and ready. FEMA suggests you should have these essentials on hand, like any medications you might need, a gallon of water per person, a flashlight, extra cash, and extra fuel just in case. Live in Gainesville, Bailey Korinek, WUFT News.
If you step outside, you'll see nice skies, but it could be the calm before the storm. UF Chief Meteorologist Tim Miller is tracking the latest advisories out for this system.
Yeah, I tell you what, guys, it is the calm before the storm, no doubt. As you can see there's the low pressure that we're talking about that is developing, which is going to be Helene. More than likely, a major hurricane now could be expected. We'll talk more about that in just a few minutes. In the meantime, right now, it's quiet outside. No summer thunderstorms. It's just beautiful, clear blue skies. There's a few little clouds outside, as you can see. Current temperature is 90 degrees, kind of east-southeast wind, about 9 miles per hour, and about 90 to about 88 degrees is where we stand. Other temperatures from 91 Ocala, 87 in St. Augustine, Jacksonville coming in about 92. So the forecast show you what's currently going on. That front's going to play a factor in Helene's development, which we'll talk more about later. But you got plans for tonight. It's quiet. The golf will start to heat up, and we'll talk more about Helene and what's going to head our way, all coming up in just a few minutes.
Stay with WUFT News to get help you get prepared for the storm. Head to WUFT.org for the latest track and to keep up with updates from city and county leaders across North Central Florida.
Palestine advocates are against a UF-sanctioned event. Protesters for Palestine gathered outside the O'Connell Center today to protest a career fair. The career fair is for computer science, engineering, and AI-related jobs. The protesters argue some companies represented at the fair are contributing weaponry to the genocide. Protester Jamie Hooper says they want UF to end partnerships with these companies.
I'm sick and tired of my tuition dollars and my tax dollars going to all sorts of these companies that are just contributing to genocide in Palestine and all over the world.
Hooper says companies like Lockheed Martin and L3Harris are providing Israel with infrastructure and components for fighter jets. Protesters chanted at career fair attendees to stay away from these companies.
Ocala police arrested a woman today after officers say she led them on a car chase, causing them to fire shots Sunday. 61-year-old Linda Vaughn was taken into custody after a suspicious person was reported at First Assembly of God Christian School. This morning, police say they found Vaughn in Daryl's Diner on Silver Springs Boulevard. That's when they say she ran into the police car, nearly striking the officers. She drove away, faced toward a fence in the parking lot, and then drove back into the officers' direction. OPD fired gunshots at the car, which led Vaughn to hit a parked vehicle.
The 4 sheriff's offices that provide safety for the city of Melrose will meet next month to extend their Four Corners Cops Without Borders. The agency have a pact in place since 2008. The city is made up of Putnam, Bradford, Alachua, and Clay counties. The pact allows deputies from one agency to arrest offenders in the neighboring counties. Next week, the 4 current sheriffs of their respective counties will renew the agreement. The signing is in October on the 7th and at 10 a.m. at Mossman Hall. Florida Lieutenant Governor Jeanette Nunez was in Ocala today to tout the state's new swim lesson voucher program. The bill signed by Governor DeSantis helps provide free swim lessons to eligible Florida families and is now open for applications. The Florida Lieutenant Governor announced the program opening and shared why the state legislature has prioritized the issue.
We see way too many drownings. Unfortunately, this year so far, 82 children have tragically lost their lives. And so for those of us that serve in capacities of leadership and those that are in the legislature, they understand that we're constantly looking at ways to prevent those tragedies.
Drowning is the leading cause of death for children ages 1 to 4. Swim lessons are the best way for children to stay safe around water and can prevent death by up to 88%. Adding barriers around pools and supervising children around water at all times are important steps to prevent drowning. To apply to the swim lesson voucher program, visit watersmartfl.com.
If you're in the market for a furry friend, the Humane Society of North Central Florida is near capacity and is hosting an adoption event this Saturday. The Humane Society says they're in serious need of animal lovers who are looking to foster or adopt a pet. They're looking for fosters as soon as tomorrow due to the incoming storm. Opening up your home to a foster pet helps clear out kennels to make space for dogs from rural shelters that are at greater risk of weather impact. You can learn more about adopting and fostering a pet at the event this weekend.
It's going to be Saturday, September 28th. It's from 11 to 3, and it is our cat and dog adoption event at Caria on the Drag and AUK Market. So that's located here on 6th Street in Gainesville, Florida. We're going to have a ton of puppies and dogs ready to find their forever homes.
If you want to check out the available animals ahead of time, head over to the NCFL Humane Society website to see the animals who are ready to meet their new families.
Coming up on First at 5, we'll tell you about new Florida laws going into effect. And then we take a look at Donald Trump's announcement declining the offer of another presidential debate. All that and more when First at 5 returns.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
New polls show good and bad news for presidential candidates. As the race remains razor tight, Vice President Harris says voters should get to see the candidates square off in another debate. But former President Trump says no, arguing it's too close to Election Day. A new NBC News poll shows Vice President Harris leading former President Trump by 5 points nationally, but within the margin of error. It's still a 16-point jump in her favor since July. Former President Trump is ahead in Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina in a new New York Times Siena College Battleground poll.
It's just too late. Voting has already started.
Let's have another debate. There's more to talk about.
Analysts say the race is expected to be a photo finish. Election Day is in 42 days and counting. As we inch closer to Election Day, here are a few deadlines to keep in mind. October 7th is the last day to register to vote. Make sure to register in person at your local election office, online by 11:59 p.m., or by mail postmarked by that day. Deadline to request a mail-in ballot is October 24th. Make sure you're ready for Election Day on November 5th.
More than 30 new laws will go into effect soon. While some were enacted in July, there are still dozens more that will be put into action on October 1st. Some of these include no sleeping in public. However, counties will be allowed to designate some areas for camping if shelters become full. Increased penalties for retail theft will also come into play, increasing punishment for porch pirates and shoplifters. It would also make it a third-degree felony to commit retail theft with more than 5 people, and a second-degree felony to use social media encouraging others to participate. And finally, anyone who causes a first responder to overdose will be guilty of a second-degree felony.
Well, all eyes on that low pressure in the northeastern Caribbean. That's going to be in the Gulf of Mexico. Be a major weather player here at home. I'll have all the details coming up.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Well, tonight the big story, of course, is what is going to be, and that is going to be perhaps our next tropical system. This cluster of thunderstorms you see here in the northeastern Caribbean is finally getting its act together. Doesn't look very impressive right now, but it will be moving towards the north. You'll also notice not a cloud in the sky over the Gulf of Mexico. That's bad news. This means the sun is baking this water, and this is going to be ripe for development. Once this storm system finally enters the Gulf of Mexico, then all bets are off. Here is the latest from the Hurricane Center. This actually has the track becoming a Category 1 hurricane, and I will tell you the latest information now has us now as a Category 3. That's a major hurricane making landfall in the Big Bend area of Florida. That would mean wind speeds well over 120 miles per hour. So this means that we could conceivably have significant damage, power outages, and of course rain and wind damages galore, and of course tornadoes, not only in this area here, but also through central Florida. The good news, if there is any good news with this system, it is moving relatively fast, so it's not going to be like Debbie and hang around. Let's do Futurecast. And I'll show you this model run here. It takes it into the Gulf of Mexico, quickly develops as it continues to move up towards the north with these bands of rain by Wednesday through much of the state, then making landfall near the Big Bend area, then quickly into the Carolinas before it's all said and done. This front's going to be a player to help ricochet this thing very quickly. So I want to show you one model. That was the GFS. I want to show you another weather model. We'll sort of give you a comparison here. This is what we call the Barron 15K. It's an in-house model. Notice where this particular model takes it, far more towards the west than the GFS has. So again, we're looking anywhere from about Mobile to about the Big Bend area where this thing will make landfall. So we're really a little bit uncertain about that. The certainty is this will become a hurricane and no doubt have a major impact on our weather. So we'll be watching very closely. In the meantime, closer to home, let me get on this side and show you it's 90 degrees. So it's been a nice day, generally speaking. Winds have been light from the east from about 9 to 10 miles per hour. Tonight we'll fall into the 70s, a little patchy fog perhaps towards morning, so off to work and school, be careful for that. So here's the story for tomorrow. Fog possible near dawn, will be around 69 degrees. Temperatures will hold into the upper 80s to around 90 degrees. That's a little higher than we should be for this time of year, but that's the calm before the storm, literally and figuratively. So this means that's the time for us to get ready for what's headed our way. Here's a look at our 7-day forecast. And of course, Thursday being the day that's we really got to focus on, guys, and that's Helene with about 83 degrees the high, 80% chance of rain. Some of that rain will be heavy. We're going to be talking more about this and go into the details, but you will notice this thing will move on fairly quickly. I think Friday to Friday night we'll have some showers, and then we're back to just typical, more of like a summertime pattern with some scattered showers and some storms Saturday and Sunday. But the big story will be Thursday, and we'll have a lot more on this as we move forward over the next couple days.
All right, well, up next in sports, we will be going over what worked and what did not work for the Gator football team on Saturday. And we will be taking a deeper dive into how that affects Coach Billy Napier in the hot seat. Stay tuned after the break.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Happy Monday, everyone. I'm Talia Baia with WFT Sports. Florida football gets a much-needed victory on the road at Mississippi State in Week 4. The offense was clicking on all cylinders as head coach Billy Napier made use of both Graham Mertz and DJ Lagway at the quarterback spot. The Gators were able to put up over 500 yards of total offense as they beat the Bulldogs 45-28. Mertz completed 19 of 21 passes for 203 yards and 3 touchdowns. Meanwhile, Lagway went 7 for 7 for 27 yards with 22 yards rushing. While the offense found its groove, the same can't be said for the defense. Mississippi State had 240 rushing yards with the Gators missing tackles and not staying disciplined in the gaps. WFT's Isa Rivera has more on how this one could affect Napier's job status.
Yes, as you can see, Ben Hill Griffin Stadium is quiet and empty as the Gators were away this weekend in Starkville taking on Mississippi State. There was a lot of speculation about whether or not Napier would be let go if the team lost, with fans and analysts alike throwing names out for potential replacements. Entering this bye week, Napier has gained some trust by brushing off the pressure and getting the win against Mississippi State. Even so, the Florida defense ranks last in the SEC and 112th nationally, giving up an average of 425 total yards per game and 188 rushing yards.
We were a little more consistent across the board today, but we know that there's going to be more consistency required. And the rush and the coverage got to work together. Overall, the rush defense has got to get shored up, and we have to eliminate some of these penalties that we had.
Billy Napier is now 4-0 in September following a loss, with a range of 170-70. The Gators will be taking a break this weekend, and then they'll be back on October 5th right here in the Swamp to take on the UCF Knights at 7:45. With WFT Sports, I'm Isa Rivera.
Moving to Gator volleyball, the number 16 Gators swept the University of Buffalo in 3 sets in a very dominant fashion. And more importantly, redshirt sophomore Alexis Stuckey was part of Florida's starting lineup on Sunday. This signaled her full return as the All-SEC setter. She contributed an impressive total of 32 assists, 2 kills, 8 digs, 2 blocks, and a service ace, playing a crucial role in the victory. Other strong showings came from sophomore outside hitter Kennedy Martin and Isabel Martin, who recorded 12 and 7 kills. The Gators start SEC play with a 4-match win streak and a 9-2 record as they travel to Norman, Oklahoma on Thursday to face the unranked Sooners. Next up in the neighborhood is high school football. Buchholz now holds a 3-2 record after struggling against Richmond Hall Friday, losing 35-28. That's now 2 games in a row that the Bobcats have lost by exactly 7 points. Despite the defeat, the offense put up quite a performance. Trace Johnson threw for 303 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Josiah Powell chipped in by rushing for 96 yards. Up next, Buchholz will take on Nice at 7 p.m. on Friday. Over at PK Yonge, the Blue Wave blew out Hollis Christian Academy 49-14, leaving the Eagles with a 0-5 record. A total of 7 different players scored touchdowns, with quarterback A.J. Powers leading the way. He threw for 4 touchdowns and finished the first half 5 of 6 passing with 103 yards. The defense even got in the scoring fun when defensive lineman Reagan Hollinger fell on a fumble in the end zone. Up next, PK Yonge will remain at home next Friday when they take on Central Florida Christian Academy. Finally, the Bills will be hosting the Jags tonight at 8:20 p.m. Buffalo might be the 5-point favorites, but let's see if Trevor Lawrence and his squad can bounce back from that rough 0-2 start.
That would be exciting. Yeah, I used to live in Jacksonville and cheer on the Jags, so that really would be great.
I'm not a huge fan of the Jags, but I am a huge fan of good weather. Tim, can you tell me something good?
You and I both are. It's pretty good now, but that's going to go downhill as we're going to be watching what will be a powerful hurricane that has the possibility of slamming into the upstate. We're talking perhaps the Big Bend area of Florida. So we'll be watching very closely over the next few days. So be sure to stay with us for sure for the very latest.
Thanks for joining us. We're back here tomorrow for another edition of First at 5.
But your North Central Florida news is always on at WUFT.org and on all of our social media platforms. Have a good night.